This is G.I. Gurdjieff, a man shrouded in mystery. Born in the Caucasus region in the late 19th century, Gurdjieff wasn't your typical philosopher or spiritual teacher. He traveled the East, immersing himself in ancient traditions, and emerged with a system for awakening consciousness that's, well, pretty intense. We're examining his life and teachings and analysing some of his most famous quotes. Gurdjieff's early life was a whirlwind of travel and exploration. He was born in a time when the lines between East and West were blurred, and he crossed those lines constantly. From the bustling markets of Cairo to the remote monasteries of Tibet, he soaked up knowledge like a sponge. He wasn't just a tourist, though. He was on a mission to collect ancient wisdom, and he pieced together a system for personal transformation that was unlike anything the West had ever seen. Gurdjieff didn't make it easy for people to understand him. He was deliberately provocative, using shock tactics and unconventional methods to shake people out of their complacency. He wasn't about handing out easy answers. He wanted you to work for it, to confront your own limitations and break through to a higher level of consciousness. And that's part of what makes him so compelling. Without struggle, no progress and no result. Every breaking of habit produces a change in the machine. Gurdjieff believed that true growth comes from pushing past your comfort zone. It's like lifting weights. One must tear down the muscle to build it back stronger. Every time you break a bad habit, you're essentially rewiring your brain, creating new pathways for growth. Think about it. When have you grown the most in your life? It probably wasn't when things were easy, right? It was when you were challenged, when you had to face your fears and overcome obstacles. It is amongst our hardships that the true self is forged. A man will renounce any pleasures you like, but he will not give up his suffering. We cling to our suffering like it's a security blanket. We identify with our problems, our anxieties, our traumas. They become part of our identity, and letting go of them feels like letting go of a part of ourselves. But the simple truth we seldom remember is that suffering is optional. Well, easier said than done. But Gurdjieff is saying that we have the power to choose how we respond to the challenges life throws at us. We can either cling to our suffering, or we can use it as an opportunity for growth. The key to true knowledge. The only type of knowledge that truly counts is self-knowledge. We live in a world obsessed with external achievement, with accumulating information and possessions. But Gurdjieff is saying that true knowledge, the kind that really matters, comes from looking inward, from understanding your own mind and motivations. How well do you really know yourself? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What are your compulsions and what triggers them? And most importantly, what are you afraid of? These are the questions Gurdjieff wants us to ask ourselves, because it's only through self-awareness that we can truly begin to grow and evolve as human beings. The practice of presence. This is Gurdjieff's call to action. Remember yourself always and everywhere. Sounds simple enough, but in our fast-paced, hyper-connected world, it's easier than ever to get caught up in the noise and lose touch with ourselves. We're constantly bombarded with distractions, our phones, our jobs, our never-ending to-do lists, and it's easy to go through the day on autopilot without ever really being present in the moment. But Gurdjieff is reminding us that presence is a practice. It's something we have to cultivate moment by moment. It's about bringing our attention to the here and now, to the sensations in our body, to the thoughts in our mind, to the world around us. And in that presence, we find a sense of peace, of clarity, of connection that's impossible to find anywhere else. The untapped potential within. This is Gurdjieff at his most optimistic. Man's possibilities are very great. You cannot even conceive a shadow of what man is capable of achieving. We often limit ourselves with our own beliefs, with the stories we tell ourselves about what's possible. We think, oh, I could never do that, or I'm not good enough, or that's just not realistic. But Gurdjieff reminds us that these are but illusions born of our own insecurities. You're capable of so much more than you can possibly imagine. We have the potential to achieve great things, to make a real difference in the world. But first we must conquer ourselves. We have to tap into that inner power that's always been there, waiting to be unleashed, before we can properly influence the external. The hypnotic master Gurdjieff's early methods. Gurdjieff was a skilled hypnotist, and he used hypnosis in his early teachings to help his students break through their mental barriers. He believed that most people are asleep in life, trapped in their own limiting beliefs and patterns of behavior. Hypnosis for him was a way to shock them awake, to help them see the world with fresh eyes. Imagine being in one of Gurdjieff's groups. The atmosphere was intense, charged with a kind of electric energy. He would use a combination of words, gestures, and even his own gaze to induce altered states of consciousness in his students. It was like he could see right through you, into the depths of your being. And in those moments of heightened awareness, something shifted. People had breakthroughs, insights, realizations that changed the way they saw themselves and the world around them. The sound of transformation, Gurdjieff's musical collaborations. Gurdjieff wasn't just a spiritual teacher, he was also a musician and a composer. He believed that music had the power to bypass the rational mind and speak directly to the soul. He collaborated with one of his students, Thomas de Hartmann, to create music that was both beautiful and deeply transformative. They called it objective music because they believed it had the power to produce specific effects in the listener, regardless of their cultural background or musical preferences. It's like the music itself carried a kind of vibrational frequency that could shift your state of consciousness, that could open you up to new levels of awareness. The crash that changed everything, Gurdjieff's near-death experience. In 1924, Gurdjieff was in a near-fatal car accident. He was seriously injured, and for a while, it wasn't clear if he would survive. This experience was a turning point in his life. He talked about how it intensified his awareness, how it made him even more committed to his work of helping people awaken. It's like the accident stripped away everything that wasn't essential, leaving him with a laser focus on what truly mattered, helping people live more conscious, meaningful lives. And from that point on, his teachings took on even greater urgency and power. A legacy of transformation, Gurdjieff's Institute and beyond. Gurdjieff established the Institute for the Harmonious Development of Man in France, a place where people could come to study his system and work on their own self-development. The Institute was like a living laboratory for exploring the potential of human consciousness. People from all walks of life came together to engage in practices designed to push their limits, to break down their egos, and to awaken to a higher level of being. And Gurdjieff's influence didn't stop there. His teachings have continued to inspire artists, writers, musicians, and seekers of all kinds. His ideas have permeated our culture, even if we don't always realize it. He challenged us to question everything, to live more consciously, and to never stop growing. Gurdjieff's enduring impact. From Frank Lloyd Wright to Aldous Huxley. It's wild to think about the reach of Gurdjieff's ideas. Frank Lloyd Wright, the visionary architect, was deeply influenced by Gurdjieff's teachings on harmony and balance. You can see it in his designs, in the way he integrated structures with nature. Aldous Huxley, the author of Brave New World, was also drawn to Gurdjieff's work. He was fascinated by the idea of expanding consciousness and exploring the hidden potential of the human mind. These are just a couple of examples of how Gurdjieff's ideas have resonated with some of the most creative and influential minds of the 20th century. And his influence continues to this day. His teachings offer a timeless wisdom that's as relevant now as it was 100 years ago. Gurdjieff's relevance today, a call to awaken. So why does Gurdjieff matter today? We're living in a time of unprecedented distraction and chaos. We're constantly bombarded with information, stimulation, and demands on our attention. It's easy to get swept away in the current, to lose sight of what truly matters. But Gurdjieff's teachings offer a way out. They remind us that we have the power to choose how we respond to the world around us. We can either be slaves to our habits and conditioning, or we can awaken to our true potential. It's not about becoming some kind of enlightened guru living on a mountaintop. It's about bringing more awareness to our everyday lives. It's about being present in our relationships, finding joy in the simple things, and living with a sense of purpose. It's about becoming the best versions of ourselves, not for anyone else, but for ourselves. His teachings provide a guide for an inward journey towards transformation.